straight from the horse's mouth. Our Neil Young News Report.
Smell the horse on this one.
With this week's update from thrasherswheat.org, here's Thrasher.
Hey, Thrasher here with this week's Neil Young News, and as always, lots and lots of fresh wheat out there in the fields, so we'll get right to it. As everyone knows, Neil Young wrapped up a 4-concert run in Los Angeles this week at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles. By all measures, another successful solo run, very similar to the solo shows that Neil Young performed in Carnegie Hall up in New York in January. Set list, the majority of it, pretty much exactly what the folks in New York heard, although some very, very significant variations in the set list, which we'll get right to. So, many highlights, which if folks have been listening to some of the recordings and Rust Radio and so on, you've probably heard by now, reviewing the Sugar Mountain set lists and so on, following the news here on Thrasher's Wheat. A couple of covers appeared in the set list. If You Could Read My Mind by Gordon Lightfoot, and also Reason to Believe by Tim Hardin. These covers unique and interesting and delightful, and hopefully you've enjoyed some of this here on tonight's broadcast of Thrasher's Wheat Radio. So thanks to Roll at Rust Radio for those files. Another set list sort of Jim Obscurity variation. It's also the performance of the song Philadelphia. So Philadelphia making an appearance there in Los Angeles. And last but not least, in terms of significant set list variations, is the performance of the song Thrasher. Well, we won't go into too much here about why this is rather special to us here at Thrasher's Wheat. Probably fairly obvious. But so the song Thrasher, it makes a reappearance in the set list after 36 years since the last performance on the Rust Never Sleeps tour back in 1978. So, needless to say, this was quite a delight and quite a topic of conversation here on Thrasher's Wheat and elsewhere in the Rusty community, Neil community, about the song and its performance. So we'll just have a few thoughts here on this, what's sometimes referred to as the Rorschach of Neil Young lyrics, his most poetic song, his most cryptic song, his song with the most metaphors and allusions and symbols, and the question of what does it all mean. Just a little digression here for us. As we mentioned, quite a personal song for us, but we had done some lyrics analysis when we had joined Rust back in 1993. It was our first Rust post, or close to it, and we had taken a crack at trying to decode the lyrics to Thrasher, and back in the day that seemed like a pretty cool thing to do, although reading it now, nearly 20 years later or so, there's some things in there that we think we got right, and some things we definitely got wrong. So not to get into all of that, but you could certainly go back to Thrasher's Wheat and look up our lyrics analysis of the song Thrasher, and draw your own conclusions, of course, is what we always recommend. But maybe just kind of, cutting to the chase on some of this. So one of our theses back when we first took a crack at this back in '93 was that this whole song imagery, Thrashers, sort of related back to the band Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and that a lot of the sentiments were directed towards Neil Young's fellow bandmates, CS and N, and partially from the aftermath of the 1974 reunion tour. So there was a lot in there that sort of made it seem as if a CSNY reunion would never happen again, that was all in the past, and that there was a bit of bitterness, shall we say. Well, of course, as time has shown, Neil Young did actually reunite with CSNY, and apparently many fences have been mended and bridges that had been burned have been rebuilt, and that's another story for another day. But sort of flipping to today, 2014. It's been 40 years since that reunion tour, and there has been a box set, as we all know, that's been talked about for some time, of the 1974 tour that would be released, and that they've been working on for some time. And so the question is, Neil Young's performance of the song Thrasher in Los Angeles, basically on the 40th anniversary of their tour. What does this mean? Does this mean the box set will come out? Does this mean that CSNY will be reunited? Well, who knows? I mean, we do think the box set will ultimately be released someday. I mean, they've got it. These things don't stay in the can forever. So it'll come out. We did hear that Stephen Stills was there for one night, so we think all's well, and this is all kind of fun, and we sure would have loved to have been there to have heard it directly live ourselves and enjoyed it. It's a delightful little song, so check it out, and I think we'll wrap up with all of that by two notes here. April 5th. This is the anniversary of the passing of Kurt Cobain. Sleeps with Angels. And we know about those lyrics that were quoted in his suicide note. Better to burn out than to fade away. So too late, too soon. And in terms of too late, too soon, our dear friend Rainer, who works over on the Human Highway side of things, he also passed away this week, very unexpectedly, very sadly. We had the honor and pleasure of seeing Rainer last summer in Europe when Thrashers Wheat Radio and WBKM went over to Europe, and meeting Rainer finally in Berlin. We've known Rainer since day one here on Rust, practically, and Rainer has been fairly instrumental over time in terms of helping us get Thrashers Wheat up off the ground as a website, and some thoughts along the way over the years. So it was great to meet Rainer this summer. It was very, very brief, unfortunately, too brief. But we're glad we did meet him, and we're very sad by his passing. And there are some tributes on the Human Highway site. We encourage you to check that out, and we're going to try and get something up here on Thrashers Wheat here soon. So we'll wrap up. Too late, too soon. Sleeps with Angels. Once again, say thanks to Roll at Rust Radio for the songs that were the live cuts from LA that we're featuring here on WBKM, and thanks Tony and Eric. We'll send it back over to you in the studio. Keep on rocking in the free world.